The analyst tells Neo that he's always been stronger when he's with Trinity. If the two of them are together, they're practically unstoppable. So it begs the question here, was the prophecy always about the Chosen One or the Chosen Two?
You must be able to see it, Mr. Anderson.
At the end of Resurrections, we see that Trinity has similar powers to Neo and can also fly. And when the two of them band up to fight against others, they become an immovable force that takes out a swarm all on their own. Makes you think, doesn't it? The concept of the One was always about believing in it more than it being set in stone. Therefore, believing in the idea of the two seems plausible enough here as well.
Try not to think of it in terms of right and wrong.
There's no doubt that Neo wouldn't have been able to do what he did without Trinity before, so maybe it's time to consider that she's just as important to the overall prophecy as he is. And that's something that's certainly implied by the end of the film. But you know what was a little strange? Bugs' role in the movie. While she was certainly the audience's eyes in the movie, did you ever consider that she could be something more than what was presented? Especially since this is essentially a new Matrix created by the analyst. What if Bugs is actually a part of the prophecy as well?
But a long time ago, you changed my life.
The name Trinity is a bit of a dead giveaway. That means three, right? Well, since Morpheus isn't really a part of this except as a program, maybe Bugs is now the third person in this team. She did step up and serve an important role in the grand scheme of things, but there's still a feeling that she could be a little more vital than we give her credit for. As Morpheus said in the first film, there have been many chosen ones and people fighting for the liberation of man over the years, and perhaps Bugs is exactly who he was talking about. Another thing that's also tackled in Resurrections is the idea of humans and machines working side by side, kinda like the Terminator, where there are some good machines and bad ones too. Though it does create an interesting tangent for any future Matrix projects. What if the next evolution in the story is the fallout of the civil war between the machines? If they're starting to turn on each other and help humans, it means there might not be any going back. After all, the Matrix is a giant metaphor for society and the haves and have-nots. There are many machines that aren't too pleased with seeing how humans are being drained like batteries or how the terms of the truce were broken. It's the equivalent of rising up and standing for what's right. With that said, machine versus machine in a battle to the end could be what's on the horizon, especially if Neo and Trinity will be turning the Matrix into their own vision now. Naturally, this isn't going to go down well among many, so there could be a new rebellion forming to take down the humans who are now fully in control of this reality. Funny how the tables have turned here, right? There are many returning faces and characters to Resurrections. However, there's one fan favorite that's nowhere to be found: the Oracle. Her absence is mentioned by Sati, who says the Oracle was deleted since she was deemed to be a rogue program. To be honest, this sounds a little bit too convenient here. The likes of Morpheus and Smith were written back into the story through other means, especially the latter, who caused way more harm than good, so it's highly unlikely that the Oracle is truly gone. But where is she then? The chances are she's still in the code somewhere, guiding others and operating on a subliminal level, like how Tiffany was able to see her future. Surely that must have been the Oracle trying to guide her back towards the truth and Neo in some way? A character like the Oracle simply doesn't just disappear from this story. In many ways, she's the epitome of hope, and she'll always be there when you need her the most. If the Matrix does continue past this movie, here's hoping that she will be included once again. And while we're on the topic of missing people, let's talk about the architect for a second here. While the analyst reveals that he now has replaced him as the overseer of the Matrix, it's strange how we never get to find out where he is. He's almost mentioned casually in passing. Like, seriously, what happened? Was he just deleted without a second thought?
There are levels of survival we are prepared to accept.
Consider this. Even though he was largely in the shadows, he was the biggest antagonist of the trilogy. And more importantly, the architect played a pivotal part in the Matrix Online video game, which is considered canon and an official continuation. In that story, he finds out about the construction of New Zion and calls off the truce, refusing to free more humans. So essentially, you can say that he started all this nonsense again. But even if he was replaced by the analyst in the long run, do you think that he'd willfully accept that? While he isn't human, it's unlikely that he'd gladly step aside without another plan. Perhaps he's built his own new version of the Matrix that acts as an alternate reality to this one, kinda like a multiverse. Anything's possible here, especially since Resurrections got super meta with us. In the original Matrix trilogy, there were two worlds: the Matrix's illusion of life and the real one. In Resurrections, though, it felt like a third reality was created. Where, you may ask? in the moment when Smith talks to Thomas Anderson about The Matrix and sequels at Warner Brothers. Not only is it a bit of self-referential humor, since it's common knowledge that the Wachowskis didn't want to return for future Matrix films, but it's also implying that there is no such thing as reality. It's just an endless spiral into other realities with no conclusive truth or final state of being. Remember Morpheus's iconic quote, "Fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony." Essentially, it could be an implication that the Matrix knows there are layers upon layers of existence, but there is no singular truth or real world here, since everything is an illusion that we only believe or are convinced to be true.
You and I may not be able to see beyond our own choices.
It's an interesting premise and really does send us down the rabbit hole of philosophy, as it makes you question everything you think you know. At the same time, there's divisiveness in the overall presentation of Resurrections. It's almost like Lana Wachowski went out of her way to create a non-traditional sequel here. After all, it's a film that's caused a lot of controversy with the fans and critics in a huge way, as everyone questions if it's even a Matrix movie to begin with. So you have to kinda wonder if the movie isn't actually a giant troll or middle finger from Lana to Warner Brothers in the first place. It's no secret that the relationship between the Wachowskis and Warner Brothers was strained after the underperformance of Jupiter Ascending several years back, and it took a lot of convincing to get one of the Wachowskis to return for a Matrix sequel, which is something that they didn't want to do at all.
It wasn't planned. It was not orchestrated in any way.
In fact, Lana wanted to scrap the whole thing during the pandemic, yet everyone persisted and wanted it to get made. So what if Resurrections is an intentional potshot at the notion of unnecessary sequels in the blockbuster movie model culture? Maybe this is Lana fighting the studio machine and delivering something intentionally divisive to ensure the story doesn't continue from here. You haven't exactly seen anyone saying that this is the beginning of a new trilogy, quite the contrary actually. So maybe this was the greatest revenge ever by delivering a film that would ensure the franchise is never touched again? Since we're all stuck in the Matrix right now, let's continue to follow the White Rabbit to the next video. This time it's all about the plot holes that made no sense about these movies, so be sure to check that out. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and stay awesome!